will be listening by recording. Hello to everyone. Welcome to our Iridology Masterclass. And what we're doing is just writing in the chat where we're from, what we currently do, and if we've ever studied iridology before. Fantastic. So Angela from Spain, have you studied iridology before? Yeah. Fantastic.
Not sure. Can I talk?
Yeah, you
Yes.
can talk.
Yeah, I used to study in Sydney in Endeavour, and in the course I study a bit of iridology.
Yeah. Well, when I studied in the 90s, we did a whole year of iridology, but now they do such a short course, don't they? Yeah.
Okay. It's kind of throughout the year, like the years. Yeah, with different practitioners, with different teachers.
Awesome.
So they kind of put in iridology here and there.
Yeah, great. Cool. Wow, you've done lots of study. Well, welcome to everyone. I'm going to keep letting people in as we go, but I will start. I'm going to just share my screen for you. Okay. Beautiful. Okay, everyone can see the screen? Wonderful. Okay, as I said, in between, if you have any questions for me, just ask me. I'm going to share some things that you can use today and over the next weeks with your family, with yourself, and with your clients. So I want to give you lots of free advice of ways that you can use the eyes, and especially the color of the eyes, with your clients. And I'll also share with you a chart that you can use for iridology, and I'll also tell you about my iridology course. If you want to become certified in iridology, I'll talk to you a bit about that at the end. But lots of great stuff that you can use straight away with your family and friends from the beginning. Okay, so I'm Christos Miliankos. If you haven't met me before, I studied naturopathy back in 1994 at the Southern School of Natural Therapies in Melbourne. And iridology was one of my first ever subjects. I remember it was on Monday evening. It was the first time I went to class, and I just absolutely loved it. And I studied it all year. And I remember we learned lots of things that we now we know quite differently. So I'll talk to you about that very soon. But I absolutely loved it. And I went through a period of not knowing how to use it. And then I fell in love with it again. So I'll talk to you about that as we go. So the iris is actually, the color and patterns in our iris is actually perfect for us. They're our genetic blueprint, like our roadmap. It's like Google Maps has given us let me just move this. It's like Google Maps has given us a blueprint of how to live our life, how to live our best life. So the color and patterns reflect what we've inherited, what the predispositions we've inherited from our parents, our grandparents, and our great-grandparents. And whether we develop the predisposition to the best case scenario or the worst case scenario really depends on how we eat and how we drink and think, live and love. Basically, how we live our life. Because it's what we do with what we get that counts. By having a gene, whether it's a good gene or a gene that's maybe a little bit more challenged, you need to unlock the gene. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have the issues that are in that gene. You still need to unlock the gene with ways that you live, ways that you eat, ways that you drink, ways that you think. So our iris is one of the best ways I've found to keep us well, best ways to know how to keep us well, and to make sure that we don't get those particular things that maybe our parents did or maybe our grandparents did, because we don't need to. We can move beyond that. And let me just add some more people in. We can move beyond that and actually use iris. So if you can just minimum of 30% of mute yourselves, that would be great if you're unmuted. So the iris is really a great way of preventative.
Guys, honestly, like, it's a business. You know, we ran a.
So if you can just mute yourselves if you're unmuted, please, that'd be great. So as I said, the iris is a really great way to prevent any issues coming up, but the iris tells us the issues to prevent. Let me show you some examples. So first of all, I want to thank my teachers. I've learned from all of these wonderful, wonderful people. Tony Miller, she was the first person that helped me to love my iris. And I'll tell you this story soon. There's Ellen Jensen, we'll look at her chart very soon, and Betty Sue, where they're both very good friends of mine and board members of IIPA with me. And I've learned a lot from them. Danny Johnson and Edith Cuff have taught me so much about personality-based iridology and birth order. And you think, how can you see the personality in the iris? But I'll share that with you as well. And also Leonard Malmau, he's a master sclerologist, and currently I'm being certified to be a sclerology teacher as well. So more about that soon. Okay, so the iris is reflected with reflex organs from our body to the areas of the iris. And you can see with the iris how we have our pupil in the middle. And you can see around the pupil, there's a little circle that is called a collarette. Another way to call that circle is a ring of expression. It's a really good way to tell how someone expresses themselves, whether they're introverted or extroverted, whether they're more insular and whether they have many friends or not so many friends, and whether they express themselves verbally or express themselves more with the written word and with reading and things like that. You can tell a lot about that from the middle of your iris, but physically it reflects our gut organs. So you can see the stomach, we can see the intestines right there in the middle. And you can see on the edge of the iris is the skin. So the middle of the iris is like our middle parts, and the edge of the iris is the skin. And close to the skin is the lymphatics. So that blue ring there is the lymphatic system. We have our lungs, our heart, thyroid, etc. Generally, things that are in the right side of our body, things that are on the right side of our body are reflected in the right side of the iris. Generally, things that are on the left side of the body in the left side of the iris. Sometimes if things are in the middle, like the thyroid, it's reflected in both. Sometimes if they cross the middle, like the heart and the liver, they're reflected in both. So, so this is the reflex areas of the iris. Now, the body has so many reflex areas. There's reflex areas on our tongue. There's reflex areas on our feet. Some of you might be reflexologists, and you know that there's reflex areas on the feet. There's reflex areas on our ears and our face. So our body has lots and lots of ways that communicates back to us about what's happening internally. But I found that the iris is one of the most intricate. One of the most intricate ways, because it really reflects what we've inherited and how we can live our best life. All right. We'll come back to this chart later. Now, I'm going to give you an ebook with some pictures of brown and blue and mixed color eyes, etc. Any of these slides, welcome to take screenshots of and use and look at later on. So eyes come in so many different colors and patterns. There's actually 16 billion eyes on the planet. Isn't that amazing? There's no eyes that are the same, even in identical twins. My friend Kathy Norris and I, we do a show on YouTube called Iridology Around the World, and we did an interview with someone that had her husband as an identical twin, and we had the two twins' eyes, and they were very similar, lots of similarities, but they were quite different as well. So no two eyes are the same. And why I say 16 billion is because your right and left aren't going to be the same either. So there's 16 billion different patterns. So eyes come in many different colors, but we're going to focus on the colors, the blue, the brown, and the mixed. They're the general three colors that we see in the iris. And you might say, yeah, but I've got green eyes. Yeah, but I've got hazel eyes. We'll talk about that soon. These are my eyes, and I'm the blue eye type. So that makes me a lymphatic type, which we'll talk about in a sec. And to a naked eye, my eyes look green. That's because there's quite a lot of yellow on my eye as well over the blue, and it makes it look green. Now, when we see yellow over the eye, that makes it more of a kidney type. So the kidneys are my primary nurture point. that's the area that I need to look after every single day, because if I don't drink for 2 hours, so I'll probably stop and drink a few times during this session. If I don't drink for 2 hours, I will get a headache. So it's as simple as that. It doesn't mean my kidneys are weak, I don't think. It means that that's what I need to do to look after my kidneys. When I first studied iridology, this is back in 1994, and there wasn't digital photography, and we were taught that the iris changed. We were taught that these little flowers could become straight, the fibers could become straight, and these little darker spots could become lighter, filled with fibers. And I thought that this, my collarette, my stomach zone that's very jagged, like a little star shape, that this would join up here where I've got a bit of a funnel. And a lady came with her machine in May of that year. So I started in March, and in May of that year, a lady came with her Polaroid machine that she had on a wheelie thing, and she put it up on the bench, and we had to put our hands like this, and there were lights coming out of it. And after a while, out came a Polaroid image, and you can probably imagine that it wasn't the best image, but it was good. And I saw these flowers, which when I learnt, we used to call those weaknesses. Wouldn't you rather have a flower than a weakness? Absolutely. And these little spots, we call these jewels, because many people have spots. Many people have these jewels. We used to call these toxic spots. And I was adamant, when I saw these in my iris, I was adamant that I was going to get them. The next year when she came back, I was going to have the most perfect eyes imaginable. And I was only 24. I was a vegan. I used to exercise and run and cycle everywhere. I would never catch a tram. I would cycle all over the city. I was a teacher at the time as well. I did lots of fasting. I did lots of juice fasts and rice fasts and watermelon fasts. And, I did a lot of meditating. And I was sure that my eyes were going to look really, really good. And the next year she came back. She brought in her Polaroid machine, put up on the bench. We took our photos, and I looked at my photos, and they looked slightly different. I mean, I had the other ones, of course, because I wanted to compare. They looked slightly different in the sense that the colors were different, but that's just the film. I mean, you can use different Polaroid paper and you can make it look different. So I was a bit devastated, to be honest. This is back in 1995, and I still loved iridology, but I didn't, because I thought to myself, well, if it doesn't change, what's the point? I thought, well, what's the point of using iridology if it doesn't change? But now we know, now with the advent of digital photography and with research, we know that the iris is actually really stable. The fibers in your iris are way more stable than your fingerprint. The fingerprint has, I think, a 2.3 or 4% error margin. So that's like 97 let's say 5% accurate. The iris is 99.9 something. Like, it's a really good way to identify you. If you go into the CIA building in America, you don't get a card to say you work there, because anyone can, take a card and change a photo and da-da-da-da. But you can't change your iris. It's the most accurate way to identify anyone. It really is even better than your fingerprint. So now we know that the iris doesn't change. And again, I thought, well, if it doesn't change, how am I going to use it? I really did. So I started being a naturopath back in 2000, and I used to look at people's eyes. I used to talk about the color, which we'll talk about today. And I used to talk about diet and, but not with as much passion as I do now. So I went to, I saw an ad for a class, and it was a class with Tony Miller, and it was a class on emotional iridology. It was actually level 2. And so I'd missed level 1, and I'm someone that doesn't like to wait till the following year. So I just started at level 2. And I thought to myself, because I've got a science degree, I've actually got 2 science degrees. And I thought to myself, how can you possibly see emotions in the iris? I mean, that's ridiculous. But you know what? I'm open-minded. So I went to the class, and this is 24 years ago. And now every iridologist that I know accepts that we can see emotions in the iris. Isn't that interesting? How things change with research and with learning, new learnings. So I went to the class, and Tony, I told Tony this story, and she said to me, Christos, would you change your parents? And I'm like, no. Would you change your grandparents? Like, what if I said, I'll give you better grandparents? I'm like, no, I like my grandparents. Like, what would I do that? And she said, but would you really like stronger grandparents? Grandparents with better genes? I said, no, I like my grandparents. And she said, well, why would you want to change your iris? Because they reflect the stories that they came with. They reflect the stories that you've inherited. They reflect the predispositions that you've inherited, both spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically. And that's when the penny dropped for me, because that's when I actually really fell in love with my eyes and accepted that they weren't going to change, no matter how much I fasted. And they haven't. Like all the structure in my eyes have been the same ever since I got that Polaroid film photo. But you know what? In my iris, I've got a lovely little flower here in the heart region. Okay, and that doesn't mean I'm going to have a heart attack, but it means that the heart is important for me to look after. My granddad did have a heart attack at 64, quite young. It also means emotionally that the heart responds to love. So I want to live a life that I love. I want to be surrounded with people that I love. Here, I'm just focusing on 3 things that really jump out at me with my iris. So here you can see that there's a funnel. There's a break in that collarette, that little circle. There's a break there. That's right in the kidney area. So the kidneys are super important for me. And I've never had any kidney problems in the sense that as long as I drink water, I won't get headaches. Okay. But my dad's had kidney stones twice. My brother's had kidney stones twice. And they tell me that the pain is that they would rather die at the time. The pain is so excruciating. I'm not going to get kidney stones because I don't drink soft drinks. I look after my kidneys. I drink lots of purified water, and I try and live a life without much fear. Like I don't really watch the news much. Now and then I do. You know, there's so much fear in the world, and the kidneys respond to fear. Another thing that jumps out at me is these little lovely flowers here. Some of these are in the lung area. And again, the lungs are important for me, and I've never had a lung problem. I don't get colds very much at all. I may have had a cold probably once or twice in the time that I've been with Sandy, my wife, which is over 20 years. However, my brother has got cystic fibrosis, and my mum had a child after me who died of pneumonia. My grandmother had 6 births and 3 survived because they couldn't breathe. You know, it's part of my family history. So it teaches me how to live my life so I don't get the lung problems. And luckily, I don't have cystic fibrosis, which is a genetic disease. So what that taught me is that the iris is a perfect canvas or a perfect blueprint of how to live my best life. So as long as I look after my heart, my kidneys and my lungs, and my gut in the middle, I'm gonna feel great to a very, very long age. If I abuse those areas, obviously, you know, it's gonna be an issue in those particular areas. But I choose not to. All right. So we're going to look today at things that you can use in your own clinics and your own families. So we're going to look at the color of eyes because it's super easy. You don't need a torch, you don't need a camera. You just need to look at the color of eyes. And as I said, there are 3 different colors. There's blue, there's brown, and there's mixed. Blue-eyed types are generally people who are more sort of blonde hair, fair complexion people, and they generally indicate an issue, they then indicate predispositions to the lymphatic system. So that means that people with blue eyes are more predisposed or more likely to get mucus conditions arising from an overactive system like allergies. They might have child ear, nose, and throat issues. They may have an overactive immune system. They may have respiratory conditions like asthma or bronchitis, sinusitis, pneumonia, things like that. They also might have skin afflictions like eczema or dry skin. And they also might have hyperacidity. So more acidity, you know, leading to issues with, you know, like arthritis or rheumatic conditions. So that's blue-eyed type. So it doesn't mean that every blue-eyed person will have all of these conditions. It means that if you're blue-eyed, you may respond more to these conditions. You may think, yeah, I've had some of these. Yeah, I've had some of these. Okay. Here's an example of here's an example of 5 blue-eyeds. So as I said, there's blue, brown, and mixed. But within the blue-eyed people, which are the lymphatic types, There are variations. You can see these are my children. These are my 5 children, all the way from my daughter Yasmina, Tobias, Kalika, Zoe, and Emilio. Some of them are pure blue, like Emilio. Kalika's got very much blue with a little bit of pigment. Some of them you can see a ring in the middle, around the pupil. That's called a ring of perfection. They're often more perfectionist. Some of them have lots of jewels. Some of them have more flowers. Like Tobias has got more flowers. Okay, but they're all blue-eyed. They're all blue-eyed types, and they're lymphatic. Which my children are probably going to be more lymphatic because both my wife and I are lymphatic types. Often, if you're mixed, you may have a people in a parent or grandparent with a brown or a mixed type. So there's some examples of blue eyes. With the brown eyes are usually to do with darker hair, darker and more olive complexion. And actually, more than 55, I think it's the 59% of the world have brown eyes. So that's a lot. So brown eyes means that there's much more pigment. If you go back to the blue eye, you can see the fibers so clearly because the anterior border layer is much thinner. Whereas with a brown eye, it's quite thick. There's more pigment on there. That's why with a brown eye, sometimes you can't even see the fibers. So if I go backwards, I can see these fibers really clearly. But often with the brown eye, they're more like a velvet covering. Often brown eyes is to do with blood issues and circulation. So they often can get a bit sluggish. There can be glandular conditions like thyroid or pancreas or adrenals. They might have variable blood sugar levels. They might have digestive disturbances and flatulence because things slow down. So things aren't digesting very well. They might have constipation and bowel sluggishness. They might even also have liver or gallbladder insufficiency. So that's the brown eye type. So the blue eye is to do with lymphatics. The brown eye is to do with circulation and our blood. Here's an example of a brown eye. You can see how the fibers are very difficult to see. So more like a velvet sheen. And there's lots of different, the fibers are really close together. Do you know the closer together your fibers are, the better your resilience. So resilience means how easy will it be for you to overcome illness and how strong your system is, how easy it is for you to get sick in the first place. So people with more open structure, lots of lovely flowers, are more prone to getting sick more often, but it doesn't mean that they will be less healthy than this type. It really depends on what they do with what they get. Okay, here we've got some lovely rings. These are called rings of accomplishment. These people love to accomplish a lot of stuff. They're real doers. They're the people that will, dot their I's, cross their T's, and get things done for you. Having someone like this work in your business is great. This is one of my really good friends from Sri Lanka. Here we've got mixed eyes. So mixed eyes is neither blue, neither brown, it's mixed. So here you can see lots of color, but you can also see the fibers below, the blue over the color, below the color, sorry. So with the mixed type, the primary nurture point is the liver. So just to recap, with the blue, it's the lymphatics. With the brown, it's the circulation and the blood. And with the mixed type, it's the liver and digestion. So gallbladder conditions, fat metabolism. They tend to be constipated and diarrhea-ish. It depends on the day sometimes. They can have lots of wind and flatulence. They can have glandular conditions. They can have variable blood sugar levels. So the mixed diet, the tendency is for the liver and for digestive errors. Okay, so I'm going to show you soon about what we can recommend to our family, to ourselves, and to our clients if we're using iridology in our clinic, of ways to really improve these particular iris types. So put in the chat if you're unsure about what your type is. Okay, I'm just going to open this up a bit more. All right, so maybe put your hand up if you're unsure about what your type is. So it's either going to be blue, brown, or mixed? John, okay. So what we might do, John, is I might take a photo, like after the class, we'll take a photo and have a quick look. I think from memory, I've got a photo, haven't I? Ah, okay. Thank you. We'll have a look in a sec. All right. So let's recap. So blue is lymphatic. That's the primary nurture point. When I say primary nurture point, it means the area to look after most. The brown is the circulation and blood. And the mixed is the liver. Okay, let's have a look. So here's an example of a mixed type. Okay, this person has a lot of gut issues. This person's an older person and has got a lot of gut issues. Not everyone that's a mixed type will have gut issues, because they may look after themselves so well with their diet, with their lifestyle, that they don't need to have gut issues. So it doesn't, with those things that I've just said for each type, it doesn't mean you'll have those issues unless you are doing things that exacerbate those particular issues. Okay, so this particular person does have gut issues. You can see that their collarette, their circle, is very wispy. You can't see the edge. It's really wispy. So it's going to be a sensitive gut. It's more dark in the middle, so it's going to add to the fermentiveness of the gut. And this person suffers hemorrhoids a lot. Yeah. And they tend to mostly, that they change slightly sometimes, but they tend to mostly have a white diet. You know, the white bread, the white rice, the white pasta, the white sugar, things like that. So, and that exacerbates their gut so much that they're very constipated and they get hemorrhoids a lot. So they don't need to do that, but that's the way they're choosing to do it, because they aren't choosing to change very much at the moment. Let's just say that. Now, sometimes my clients will ask me, do I have to do this forever? Like, you know, what I'm going to show you now, they might ask, do I have to do this forever? I said, no. I want you to follow the 80-15-5 rule. So that's a really good rule, because people don't like to do things forever. I mean, if I said to you forever, I never want you to have tiramisu again. I mean, I'll be like, but I like tiramisu. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, when you say forever to someone, it's a really good way to get them to not want to do it. So I like the 80-15-5 rule, because 80% of the time I usually say to my people, I give them this to take home. I give them this on a piece of paper to take home. And I say 80% of the time, I want you to focus on this diet, okay? And 15% of the time, let's say you visit John and he's made you this amazing lasagna and he's worked so hard in making it. He's very, very excited, really look forward to having you. You know, maybe you don't question whether it's gluten-free and, you know, all of those other things that you try and do instead. And 5% of the time is, I call you naughty time, because I believe everyone likes to be a bit naughty. And, you know, if tiramisu is your thing, if you have that once a month, it's not going to make much difference at all. But if you have that every week, you know, maybe a few times a week, it is. It is. It's really hard to steer away from that. So with the lymphatic type, we want to boost the lymphatics. We want to get that lymphatics really moving like a fast-moving river rather than a sticky pond. So vigorous exercise, mini trampolining is great for any lymphatic type. So if you're blue-eyed, jump up on a trampoline, because it's a really good way to break down that lymph. Walking and swinging your arms, like walking with, you know, strong swings of your arms and deep breathing is really good. The daily diet should contain lots and lots of fresh stuff, fresh fruits and vegetables, but keep adequately hydrated, because if you're not hydrated enough, then your lymphatics will get sticky, okay? Reduce the amount of mucus-forming foods. So if mucus-forming foods are things like dairy, things like white flour products, and sugar, okay? Often we might need some enzymes. So living foods high in enzymes will promote lymphatic cleansing. So that means lots of raw foods as well. So everything can't be cooked, because all the enzymes will die. It means that then you need to take enzymes to help you digest this stuff. So foods high in enzymes like alfalfa and like, you know, some of those bean shoots and things that are actually still living are really, really great. Regular exercise in fresh air and sunshine is really good as well. So even if it's winter, like a lot of people with blue-eyed, you know, may live up in, you know, in the in the high areas of Scandinavia, for instance, but they still go out in the winter and do exercise, whether it might be on a lake and they might be ice skating, it might be riding their bikes. I was amazed when we went to we visited my son in Iceland for Christmas last year, and we went via Denmark and flew from there. And I was amazed. It was raining this whole day, and everyone was still out cycling. Cycling is so part of their culture. They just had rain jackets, and there's a saying in Denmark that says there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing, which is so interesting. I love that. So, you know, doing things in fresh air and sunshine is great, even in the rain if it's been raining a long time. Lymphatic massage, get your lymph moving. Lymphatic Bowen therapy, fantastic. Singing can be a great way to exercise lymphatics too. So usually most of my lymphatics, especially when I'm treating them for lymphatic conditions like sinusitis and things like that, jump up on a trampoline and sing. And I get them to sing in the shower and sing in the car, because everyone loves to put on some music in the car and just belt out, because no one else can hear you unless you stop at a light and it's really, really, really loud. Okay, hematogenic wellness. So that's the brown-eyed people. And remember, this is something that I give to all my clients that are this particular type, so that they can make some changes. And remember, I talked to them about the 80-15-5 rule. So I want them to do this 80% of the time. So hematogenic people really need to sort of cut down on junk food, if any. So avoiding fried food, but things that are high in fiber and lower animal fat, because fiber will help improve the circulation, especially in the gut. It'll help improve the circulation so you don't get as constipated. So you're pushing things through. Really good fats like flaxseed oil, olive oil, avocado, coconut oil, they're going to be really good for the hematogenic type. Improving your blood circulation with lots of greens, sprouts, cabbage, spirulina, chlorophyll, wheatgrass, lots of raw vegetable juices are fantastic. Eat a diet really high in live enzymes, as we said with the lymphatic type, because with the hematogenic type, if you're not having enough enzymes or not having enough digestive chemicals, let's say, to digest all your foods, then it's going to be slower. And we don't want to make it slower. We want to make it faster, because it's already prone to being slow. We want to make it faster. So regular exercise will help improve stress and improve muscle strength as well. So that's for the brown-eyed type. Then we've got the mixed type. So the mixed type is, we want to do things that don't overtax the liver. We don't want to stress the liver. So things like saturated fats, things like junk food, things like alcohol, dairy, red meat, rich sweets, refined sugar, they're really important to have less of. And I usually, when I give them this sheet, I usually put an arrow next to that and I say, I want you to have less of these. I don't ever say I want you to never have them again, because, you know, I want them to come back. Lean white meat and hormone-free chicken is really super important, because so much of our meat has hormones in it, and we don't want to give our kids and things. Well, we don't want to eat hormones in our foods either. So it doesn't cost much more to have hormone-free chicken. I think it's like a few dollars more. And I usually say to my clients, aren't you worth a few dollars more? I mean, don't you buy cappuccinos for like $7 these days? You know, like a few dollars more for, you know, good chicken is a good idea. But it should be with lots of vegetables too. So we shouldn't have, you know, like a meat with like a bit of mashed potato and a bit of peas. Well, ideally, we want to have your meat with a palm-sized serve, and then 5 palm-sized serves of vegetables as well. Different colors are great. All my mixed types, I suggest to them to do half a juice, the juice of half a lemon in some warm water or cool water. It depends on where you are. At the moment, warm water where I am is good, because it's like, you know, 0 degrees when I wake up. And that's a really good way to cleanse your liver. So in Chinese medicine and in acupuncture, the liver works a lot between 1 and 3 p.m. That's when the liver meridian is most active. And when we wake up, it's worked a lot overnight, getting us, you know, clearing out alcohol if we've had any, or our medications and our hormones and our foods and, you know, whatnot. So by waking up, it's just a really lovely way to cleanse it and get it ready to start its day. Okay. And you can actually add other things too. You can add apple cider vinegar, and turmeric is really great too. I try and keep it simple, because often if I say to some of my clients, I want you to have half a lemon with some a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar and some turmeric powder and some ginger. Then they're going to be like, oh my God, are you serious? So I usually try and keep it simple. Let's start with lemon juice and we'll go from there. Good fats like flaxseed oil, coconut oil, olive oil. If we have trans fats, they're going to affect our gallbladder. And if we don't have a gallbladder, they're going to affect our bile, our liver. They're going to put a lot more pressure on it. So try and avoid having too much of those fats. Adequate hydration is super important, but purified water is really super important as well. I'm someone who tries to have when I travel, I try and have tap water because there's millions and millions and millions of plastic bottles in the sea. But when I can, I have purified water. Because purified water, like in Melbourne tap water, there's 151 additives, like to make it safe. That's a lot of additives. I would rather have much less additives and purify it and make it more alkaline. So usually I drink only purified water, except if I'm traveling, and I do drink tap water when I'm traveling mostly. Avoid artificial sweeteners and use stevia instead. Things like aspartame are poisonous. And don't take my word for it. Google aspartame, Google 951 or 952, sometimes it's called. And it's really bad for you. It's attached to so many negative things that can happen in our bodies. So try, if you're going to have soft drinks, don't have the diet stuff. They're always aspartame. Okay, so you use stevia instead if you're cooking, and not equal in those other sort of artificial sweeteners. And consider a liver cleansing program annually. Now, the people that are mixed and see me regularly always do a liver cleanse every year because it's going to make them feel so much better. I mean, if you're at your house, don't you want to spring clean it once a year? Even though you clean it every week. You do the toilets, you do the shower, you do the dusting. Once a year, if you really pull away some of those couches and some of those cupboards and get up on the fans, doesn't the house feel fantastic? Doesn't it? Don't you love being there? And that's the same with our bodies. Like the mixed type can get toxins much more easier to hang around. So we want to cleanse them. So if you're a mixed type, do a liver cleanse once a year. Okay. Now I will go to the chat soon and ask and answer questions. So keep the questions coming in the chat if you have any popping up. Now I want to remind you that when we see something in the iris, like in my case, it's a very good example, is that they're not a diagnosis. We never diagnose through the iris, we assess. But they lead us to questions to ask. And they're not always 100% accurate because many signs may be genetic inheritance without the absence of any symptoms. I don't have any symptoms in my lungs. I don't have any symptoms in my heart, even though I've got strong signs in those particular areas. I mean, the only thing I can think of with my lungs is that I feel like I'm drowning if I'm in water that I can't stand up in. So I find it hard to water tread. Maybe that's part of my genetic history with lungs, and my sister dying of pneumonia, and some of my maternal aunties and uncles not surviving because they couldn't breathe. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. But physically, I don't have any lung symptoms. I don't get colds. I've had COVID once. I've coped really well with it. So even though there's signs there, there may not be symptoms. So what we see in the iris is a really good way to ask more questions. Okay, so even if you use the chart to look at where particular things are, that they can lead you to more questions to ask. Okay, then you don't look at them and say you've got this particular issue, because in my case they'd be wrong. So I usually look at the constitution, which is lymphatic for me, plus 3 nurture points. Okay, 3 nurture points. And the 3 nurture points I choose are things that jump out at me. Okay, so in my eye, I chose the funnel, I chose the heart flower, and I chose the lungs. Okay, I could also choose the gut. I mean, you can see that I've got a very jagged collarette. So my gut organs that are in here, can be up and down if I'm not eating well. And I've had ulcerative colitis twice. And recently was when I was 50 and I was very stressed at the time and I didn't look after myself enough. I ignored the blood that I saw in my stools. And it meant that it got so bad that I had to be really good to get rid of it. Because, you know, like with things like ulcerative colitis, they consider it a autoimmune disease and people have it forever. But I haven't got any. I haven't got any symptoms at all. But I was 100%. I wasn't 80, 15, 5. After I had it, I actually called my good friend Ellen Jensen, and I said, Ellen, I really want you to help me with how to clear this. And she gave me diets, because sometimes we don't want to treat ourselves. Sometimes it's important for us to go to another therapist to look after us. So she did. She looked after me, and I was 100%. I did gluten-free. I did dairy-free. I did lots and lots and lots of vegetables. I did lots of vegetables that were soups, like smoothies. I did cabbage juice. Cabbage juice is the best thing for bleeding of the bowels. And cabbage juice isn't very nice. You get used to it, though. If you do it for 6 months, you get used to it. And I was having a pint of juice mixed with mostly cabbage, some carrot, some celery, some beetroot, some ginger every single day. But you know what? It worked because I came off my medication that I had to be on. I haven't had any issues since. I've had colonoscopy since, and they've been fine. The doctor can't believe that I'm not on his medications, but he's accepted that I'm not. And I feel great. But do you think that if I ate a white flour diet and I let myself get stressed, overworked, and did something that I did, you know, maybe worked in a job that I really didn't like, what do you think would happen? I would get ulcerative colitis again. 100%. But I'm not, because now I know how to look after myself more. So sometimes with some people, we need to be a little bit more than 80%. So now I'm 80% for sure. Every time I go, one of my naughty times I really love to do is I really love chocolate and chili together. Absolutely love it. I actually can't, like if I see it together, I almost can't not have it. So I go to this cinema in Melbourne. I only go there once every few months, but I go to a cinema in Melbourne called the Nova, and they have chocolate chili choc tops. So they have a choc top with chocolate and chili ice cream. It's amazing. So I have that all the time. That's my naughty time. So now I'm sticking to the 80, 15, 5 rule for sure. But when I was not well, I was 100%. And sometimes we need to be. Okay, so constitution, 3 nurture points. If I look after those 3 nurture points, I'm going to be really well. So to remind you about the chart, our body has many, many reflex areas. And it's very interesting. There's so many charts around the world. And in my comprehensive iridology course, we use this chart, and we also use Tony Miller's chart. And it's like with all the charts that we've done around the world, we've done lots of research. The head is always at the top. The feet and knees, etc., are always down the bottom. The kidneys are always between 5 and 7 o'clock. The heart's always at 3 o'clock on the left eye. Sometimes in some charts, it's shown on the right eye as well. The liver's always around 8 o'clock. So it's really amazing that these charts have developed in areas where there hasn't been communication. There hasn't been emails and Zoom meetings and things like that. They often were, you know, hundreds of years ago, sometimes thousands of years ago. There's been old iridology found in tombs, like Tutankhamun's tomb. So there's lots of old ways, lots of history in iridology, but I think it's fabulous for me. I love the fact that with charts, the head's always at the top, the feet and toes are always at the bottom, even though these charts have been made in areas where they couldn't possibly have communicated. Okay, all they did was looked at eyes after eyes after eyes and drew pictures. They didn't have Zoom meetings and PowerPoints like we do now. They used to draw pictures. They used to see hundreds of people that had heart issues, and they all had a little marking at 3 o'clock, and that's how they came up with that. It's amazing. So this chart's a great one to use. You get it as part of the comprehensive iridology program that we do, but you know, if you can order it from Ellen Jensen's website as well if you want one for your wall, etc. Now, what I do in my clinic is I look for flags. Okay, so if you looked at my eye, let's go back to my eye. There'd be a flag of the kidneys. There'd be a flag of the heart. And there'd be a flag in the digestion or the lungs. Now there'd be a flag. So then I'm going to look for other flags. Are there other flags? Is there a sign, another sign, maybe in the sclera? Because the sclera, which is the white part around the iris, does change. Is there another sign in the sclera that leads me to believe there may be some liver issues or maybe some heart issues? Or is there even another one? Maybe I look at the tongue. So I like to look at 3 flags. I like to use that system to help me design what area I'm going to focus on most with my clients. Because, you know, as a naturopath, I do lots of testing. Okay. I do Dutch tests and oat tests and allergy tests, etc. But when people come to see me with period pains or headaches or particular digestive issues, they want help straight away. Okay. And a lot of the younger naturopaths that I'm seeing recently in my clinic, they do so much testing and they don't give anyone anything till that testing's all done. But that's like 2 or 3 weeks sometimes. Some of that testing takes 2 or 3 weeks to come back. And I think by looking at their tongue, looking at their iris, we can give them some information straight away, and we can give them something straight away that will help their period pain, will help their headaches, will help their digestive issues, and then still do that other testing. I'm not saying don't do all that other testing. The other testing is fantastic. Hair analyses and saliva tests and, you know, candida tests, all of that, they're great. But our clients also want quick answers. They want to feel better. They want to feel better just from our words. When they leave the clinic, they want to feel better because we've spoken to them in positive words. And they want to feel better because we've given them some magnesium, which is not going to hurt anyone, that will help them with their period pain or help them with whatever they come in with. So if you're a new naturopath, what I'm going to recommend to you is to learn how to look for signs in the body and still do the testing that we've all learned about, for sure, but learn ways to give our clients some information straight away so that it can help them with their headaches or it can help them with whatever they're coming with. And I find that, you know, I always give people flower essences because flower essences are fantastic at helping people, but they're not going to hurt anyone. They're not going to affect their heart medication, or they're not going to affect their, you know, chemotherapy drugs or anything like that. Okay. So I stick, you know, initially, you know, depending on when I'm, you know, doing some research about what they're taking, etc., I always stick to things like magnesium, things like some herbs, things like flower essences. But I like to look at the 3 systems, the 3 flag system, to get the area to focus on most. Because if I see a sign in their liver and I see yellow in the white part of their iris and I see yellow all over their tongue, the body is screaming at me to look after the liver. So that's what I want to focus on. Yeah. All right. Now, as I said before, we want to build rapport. So we want to use positive words. So I always say things when I'm looking at someone's eye with my little torch and I'm taking photos, I always say things, oh, what a pretty eye. I love that dark ring around the edge of your iris. Isn't that beautiful? Rather than saying, oh, that means you're going to have skin issues. Because it doesn't. It's a ring of purpose. It means that they're more likely to have skin issues. But it's a ring of purpose, which means they want to live a life of purpose. And when they're living a life of purpose, when they've got really good self-confidence, they may never have other skin issues. So I always like to use the words like rings, ring of purpose, ring of harmony. I like to use the words flowers for lacuna, those breaks in the fibers. I like to use the word jewels for pigments. And because people love to have flowers, people love to have jewels. And all I'm doing is giving them some information about those areas to look after. I'm always going to give them something. If the jewel is in the liver area, I'm going to give them something to help protect their liver. I'm going to give them some information, but I don't want to say, you've got a problem with your liver. You don't do that. You give them positive feedback. You get them, when they leave, they want to feel better than they came in without even taking anything yet. Okay, just by your words. I'm going to share, before we finish, I'm going to share a case study. And I want to show you this because it doesn't matter if you don't have a perfect, focused picture. Because this guy was 95 when he died last year. and his name was Bert. Beautiful man, really tall, quite skinny. And you can guess he came to see me for lymphatic issues. Okay, he came to see me because he had sinus issues. He came to see me because he had digestive issues. And when he was eating gluten and dairy, he didn't feel very good. So we did all the, getting rid of, gluten, dairy. We did an allergy test. We desensitized. But, like Bert was full of candida. When we did a test, he had so much candida in his gut. And that affected it in the sense that he had a lot of urgency. Like he would go to Kmart and he'd have to run to the toilet. And it was embarrassing, especially when you can't, it was quite good on his feet, quite agile actually. But, like when you're 95, you don't want to run to a toilet. So we got to the stage where I wasn't going to tell him to stop his beer because he loved it. He wasn't the type of person that, like us, that we're, doing webinars and learning new things and, reading books. He got up, went to his garden, did a few things, came in, had some lunch, did a few things, had a nap, woke up, sat on the porch with a few beers, and initially about 3 to 5, and watched the kids walk home from school. And when they finished walking home from school, it was almost time for him to cook dinner. So that was his life. So I wasn't going to take that away from him. I'm not going to tell him to drink carrot juice or celery juice on his porch in Rutherglen while he watched the world go by. So we worked out that if he had 2 beers a day, he was fine. If he had 2 beers, because he already became dairy-free and gluten-free, and he didn't mind that. He loved soy milk. He loved all the the yogurts and all of that sort of stuff. He changed all of that. But sometimes with some clients, I feel like we need to work with where they're at. So with him, it gave him so much joy to sit on his balcony and drink beer that I wasn't going to say don't do that, even though that fed his candida. But regularly we had to boost his probiotics and boost his maybe the homeopathics that I was giving him. But I saw Bert, he came to see me when he was 82. So I saw him for about 13 years. And he came to see me every single month. We did some Bowen therapy for his lymphatic system. We treated his tinnitus. Like after a while, many months, not overnight, he didn't have tinnitus. Or he would sometimes have it and sometimes not. He'd say, oh, I haven't noticed it this week. Oh, okay. Like to give people that sort of relief is amazing. So, and he kept himself well. He never had any other medications until he was 95 when he had some heart issues and a stroke. So for all those years he had magnesium and and he kept himself well. But I really love his story because we don't have to be 100% with our clients, and also we don't have to have perfect iris photos. You can see they're a bit blurry because he found it really hard to open his eye, like wide. So I was like trying to, take a photo while I'm opening his eye wide. So, and that's the best I could get. And that's okay because that was all I needed. All I needed to see that he had small pupils, that he had a ring of perfection, that I could see his stomach zone, I could see all the lymphatics. That's all I needed. So thank you to Bert. And he was one of my most cherished clients. He used to love coming in. I used to love him coming in. And we even helped his hearing with Bowen therapy, because he lost his hearing aids when he took off his masks. With COVID, you take off your mask, you lose your hearing aid. He said, "I'm not buying another one. It's $5,000. They're just da 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 da." So, but I was wearing a mask, and he, after we did many sessions of Bowen, he took herbs for his ears as well. He could hear better. And he still had the TV on loudly, his daughter said, but c'est la vie. So I just want to honor Bert, one of my very long-term clients who gave me a lot of joy and taught me lots of great lessons. So thanks, Bert. Okay, I want to thank you for joining this masterclass. Hopefully I've given you a few little things that you can use with the chart, with the colors, because if we use just colors, we can help people. We're going to help ourselves and we're going to help people by just using the colors of their iris. If you're someone who wants to go further with iridology, so even if you've done iridology, like I did iridology back in '94, and I thought I knew everything. And then in 2000, when I met Tony Miller, I did her course 7 times. That's because I just loved it. I learned something new every time, etc. So if you want to become certified in iridology, as I said at the beginning, I'm going to tell you how. I usually have a class that is an evergreen class, which means you can study at your own pace. Okay, it's recorded, you can study at your own pace. However, once a year, I do a live on Zoom. So I do a live on Zoom every Tuesday night for a couple of hours, and where we do all the PowerPoints, we go all the slides, etc. So it's with people live. Sometimes people miss some of the classes because they, on one Tuesday they have to go to their kids' dance performance or something, and that's fine because it's all recorded, and it's always recorded to the point where you can go back and listen to a particular one as many times as you want. But I've got the course starting next week. It starts at 6:30 p.m. Australian time, so that's I think 8 or 9 hours before or ahead of Spain and etc. So I'll leave you to work that out if you'd like. It goes from the 18th of June to the 3rd of September. And as I said, if you want to do this course and you don't have every single Tuesday free, that's fine because they'll all be recorded. This is the website, and I'll put this in an email to you tomorrow when I send you the recording. So I'll send you the recording of this masterclass, so you can listen to it again if you want to. But I'll send you this link so you don't have to type it, copy it off your screen. But there'll be $200 off for doing the course until midnight tomorrow night. And just for being at the masterclass, I'm going to give you some bonuses. I'm going to give you, if you want to do the course, I'm going to give you my book, which is valued at $44, signed by me, of course. And I'm also going to get the rated birth order course, which is valued at $127. It's a course that you do as you go. And I mentioned birth order before. And birth order I learned the first time I did iridology, emotional iridology. And it taught me so much about myself. But then when we had kids, it taught me that we have to treat all of our kids differently. For them to reach their highest potential, we need to treat them all so differently. And when we had 3 kids, my wife wanted more, and I'm like, oh, really? And my proviso was that we have to do this birth order course together. So we did, and we ended up having 5 kids. And I love sharing birth order with people. So I'm going to throw that in as well. So thank you. I'll go back to, let me go back to here. Actually, I'll stop my share. So there's some questions here that I want to answer. And if you have any new questions, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask. Tanya says, great info. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Christos. Again, another very educational meeting. Always enjoy learning from you. Thank you, Katrina. Hi, Laura, nutritionist, studied iridology. Fantastic, Laura. Great info. Thank you. Did you learn through Mark Wells? No, I didn't, Beverly. I learned through Helen McWillis. Helen McWillis. Mark Wells taught me flower essences, bark flower remedies. And so he was teaching that at the time. And he taught iridology at the Southern School after I left. So no, I didn't learn from Mark Wells. I learned from Helen McWillis, who I've tried to find her. I've tried to find her on Facebook. I mean, she'd be really, maybe in her 70s now. But I haven't found her. Again. So if anyone knows Helen McWillis and how I can contact her, please let me know. Greetings from Bulgaria. Learned flower essences through him also. Well done, Beverly. Beverly, did you go to Southern School? I think Beverly's in the car. Oh, no, okay. So thank you to all. Have anyone else got any questions that it's left on? Okay, well, I'll send you an email tomorrow, and I'll also send you the ebook that has some of the pictures that I shared today, as well as some of the words about the blue-eyed and the brown-eyed, etc. Okay, so hopefully you find that helpful. And if you have any other questions, please contact me by messenger, by WhatsApp, or email, and we'll answer those. But thanks for joining us. There's a couple more questions. Let me just, thank you. So how much is the course? The course is $18.99. It's Australian dollars, Beverly. And so we get $200 off, and it's a certification course. So that means that you will that is what you need to get certified by IIPA, which is the International Iridology Practitioners Association. So after you do the course, we also do some case studies, and I coach you through those monthly with monthly Zoom meetings, etc. And then you do an exam before you become certified. But you get an international certification with that. So thanks, Susan. Wonderful. Thank you, David. Good to see you again. And thank you, Carney. All right, wonderful. I'll look forward to hearing from you, and we'll go from there. Have a great evening, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Christos.
Stop my share. Stop the recording.